November 2022 was a strange time to be a Wolves fan. Of course, we had the Winter World Cup, which made the Premier League season probably one of the strangest that we've seen in the modern era. But going into that World Cup break, Wolves were rock bottom of the Premier League, scoring just 8 goals in 16 matches and being sat on 10 points, 4 points adrift from safety. But if you remember, just a few weeks before that World Cup break, Bruno Lage was sacked as Wolves' first team head coach, and after struggling to find a replacement, Julen Lopetegui finally came to the rescue. And just a few weeks after that, Matt Hobbs was appointed as the club's sporting director, going into what could have been one of the most crucial transfer windows that the club had seen in its modern era. Fast forward 3.5 years now, Matt Hobbs has moved on. Wolves are going with a completely different type of leadership group at the top. So I think it's time to sit down, look at all those signings made under the Matt Hobbs era and grade them from A to D. Overall, I've got 21 players that I'm going to be looking at today. I've got 3 exclusions, one of which is Noah Lemina, just because he had very little impact on the team, Tawanda Chirewa and Bastien Moypiu, who signed last summer. So let's get into it. I'm going to be going in time order, so basically from his first signing to the final signing. So we're going to start off with Matheus Cunha. And what a way to start off, to be fair. Fantastic player. I think at the time, the transfer fee seemed a little bit inflated. Of course, I have no doubt that there would be outside sources such as Gestifute and George Mendes that would have helped a lot with some of these transfers. I'm not going to pin 100% responsibility on Matt Hobbs, but of course he would have been one of the top guys to sign these off. But yeah, Cunha, I remember his first season was quite quiet, but the last year or so he's really, really kicked on. Ultimately, Wolves fans would probably have wanted the ending to be, well, it finished happy ever after, but maybe not quite to be. But I think Wolves making a profit on him, the return that he had at the football club, I think we have to kick off with Cunha sitting as an A. We now move on to Mario Lemina, who, again, let's forget his final few weeks or month or so at Molineux. I think at the time a fantastic signing. That first window is really, really crucial for Wolves. And you'll see with some of the players that I'm about to mention as well, they did really, really well in terms of the recruitment. So Mario Lemina, fantastic. I think really kicked on and was a massive part for us in regards to staying in the Premier League. And in that second half of the season under Lopetegui and throughout Gary O'Neill's first campaign as well, I thought he was a top player. Obviously the captaincy my decision and choice maybe got onto him a little bit too much, and we saw things spill over a little bit at the start of the 24-25 season. So that's probably why I'm going to drop him down to a B. I think Lemina was a very good signing. Let's ignore the antics and so on. That's why he's sort of dropped down to a B, but I think a very decent signing overall for Wolves. We'll move on to Pablo Sarabia now, and again another player who I think we all thought at the time, fantastic piece of business for the fee and so on. Was reported to be on quite a fairly high wage as well. This one's difficult for me to judge fairly. He's definitely not going in the A category just because I don't think he's produced enough for Wolves. And I'm torn between B and C. I just think in terms of Gary O'Neill didn't favour him too much. Vitor Pereira used him a fair but very rarely started. It's difficult for me. Produced some big moments in some big games. But am I being harsh? I'm going to put Pablo in C. It may feel a little bit harsh. Obviously, let me know your thoughts in the comment section on that one. But I just think for the stature of player, for what he had produced just before joining Wolves or the season before at Sporting, I think I would have just wanted a little bit more from him. And it just wasn't to be. We move on to Craig Dawson, and again, I think very similar to Mario Lemina, an exceptional player, did exactly the job that he needed to do coming into the club. I just think because he dropped off quite drastically over the last 12 months, I think I'm going to put him in B rather than A, but the impact that he had at the club was fantastic. And, I hope he continues his career, albeit I think it will be at a lower level. But, yeah, for me, Craig Dawson, top player, good signing at the time. I'll slot him in at B. Moving on to Dan Bentley now, and there's a couple of players similar to this. Not really had a huge impact on the pitch for Wolves, but behind the scenes, I've no doubt he's been a huge character at the club. Was linked with a move away last year. Had obviously very short spells in goal. There's been some times where he's actually been okay, but other times where I think he's he's sort of been a little bit disappointing when he's got the opportunity. So I think I'm going to stick Dan Bentley at C for this one. It was a very low risk signing. It was always going to come in as a second or third choice, and I think he's done his job for now. It'll be interesting to see over whether it's this summer or next summer whether he will move on. But for now, I think as long as he's happy to be second or third choice, I think that will remain the case. Next up is João Gomez, just a phenomenal footballer for Wolves. Again, a little bit of a slow start when he first joined the club, but you would expect that moving from a completely different continent as a young man still, but gets better and better game by game. He's added so much to his game since joining Wolves. Going to be one of the most sought after players, I have no doubt, within the next 12 months or so, and hopefully he can continue with his trajectory as a Wolves player. For me, it's got to go in an A alongside Matheus Cunha in what was, to round off a fairly successful first transfer window for Matt Hobbs. Moving into the first summer campaign, and it wasn't really full of star-studded names that you would probably hope and expect. We start off with Tom King. Again, similar to Dan Bentley, not had a massive impact. He made his first Premier League appearance on the final game of last season just now for a few moments at the end. I could put him in D. I think I'll put him with C because I just think by what's being said at the club, he obviously has a big impact behind the scenes. He's no hassle. He's happy again to be third or even fourth choice at the club. So I'll slot him in at C. Next, we move on to Matt Doherty, a return to Doc at Wolves, and again it was a strange one for Doc because it was when he joined, everyone was like, "What's going on?" But on a free, it made sense long term, and I think it's really worked out this year as well. Vitor Pereira is obviously a huge fan of Matt Doherty, so I'll put this one at a B. I think for the fee, the versatility that he's got, obviously him being in and around the club, been a Wolves player for a long, long time now. I think it's a big plus. So yeah, for me, Matt Doherty in at B. Enzo Gonzalez next, and again, I could have easily put him in the sort of the players that I missed out on this, but I just think because he's been at the club a little bit longer than some of these players, just the injuries have caught up on him. 2 injuries, had a very, very small spell in the first team. I will have to put this one in D, but that's just purely because of injuries for Enzo right now. I'm hoping next season, whether it's at Wolves or whether he moves out on loan, I think he just needs to be playing a lot of football next year, whether it's at 21s for Wolves for the next 6 months to see what stage he's at, what quality he can produce, or whether it's out on loan. But yeah, next season I think is a big one for Enzo. He needs to stay fit though, but at the moment he's just not being a success at Wolves, so I'll have to put that one down as a D. Next up is Santiago Bueno, who I was probably hoping would have had a bigger impact in his time at Wolves so far. He has been a little bit hit and miss. He's been in and out of the team, to be fair to him. And again, next season will be really interesting to see where he ends up. Is he going to stay at Wolves and fight for his place? Is he going to be given opportunities? Or ahead of what is going to be a crucial season for a lot of players, with it being a World Cup year, is he going to want to go out, play a lot more football out on loan? For now, I think I'm going to have to put Santi as a C. He's not been that awful that I have to put him in the D, but he's not been remarkable enough and done enough in a Wolves shirt for me to put him into the B or A category yet. Next up, we've got Tommy Doyle, and again, probably similar to Santiago Bueno. We've seen spells of Tommy Doyle where it really shows the player that he is, but I just don't think he's quite ready for the Premier League as of yet on a real 38-game consistent basis. I think at the time the terms of the deal seemed really, really nice, the £5 million, and then the 50% sell-on clause for City was a little bit dubious. And at the moment, with Vitor Pereira not favouring him, it seems like that is going to possibly scupper any deal or any profit that Wolves may make from the deal. So for now, I'm going to put, again, Tommy at C. I think he's produced enough and enough big moments to help the team and win us points. I think Brighton and even the Manchester United game at home this season, he was a pivotal factor in how we rounded up that game for Hwang Hee-chan to score at the death. But yeah, for me, I think Tommy's just has to sit at a C for now. But again, in the future, could easily be going up to sort of the B category, I'd say. Next one is Jean-Rick Bellegarde. I was a little bit stuck on this one, to be fair, because I think he's had a real slow start to his Wolves career, but the last sort of 6 months he's really burst into life, and we're really seeing the best out of Jean-Rick Bellegarde, whether it's in that front three or even in the middle of the midfield too. I would say for me, Jean-Rick Bellegarde, I'm going to put him at a B. I was going to put him at a C, but I just felt that was a little bit harsh, especially with some of the players that he was alongside. His first full season at Wolves held back a lot with injuries, but under Vitor Pereira has really kicked on now. And a player that, you would have classed as no more of a squad player, but now you could argue he's a first team player or a real impact player for Wolves. So again, credit to Vitor Pereira for that, but credit to Jean-Ric Bellegarde, who has found this level of confidence that we hadn't seen enough of in a Wolves shirt. And again, I'm really hoping he can build on that going into the new season. So next up then, we go on to the last 12 months or so and the final 2 transfer windows that Matt Hobbs had as sporting director of the club. We'll start off with Rodrigo Gomez. Very, very early days for Rodrigo. We've seen certain glimpses of brilliance so far, and then I've seen other games where I just don't think he's quite ready for it. I have no doubt he'll go on to become a very good player at Wolverhampton Wanderers, or, well, either at Wolves or elsewhere. I think he'll have a fantastic footballing career. At the moment, I think not quite ready to be pushing first team and really hasn't set the world alight just yet. So for that reason, I'll put him at C. But again, another player similar to a few of the players that I've already mentioned that I could definitely see rising up those grades over the next few years. We're now Jørgen Strand Larsen, who had a fantastic debut season at Wolves, albeit on loan. He's now joining the club on a permanent deal this summer. That's already happened. Again, I could easily put this in A, but I think I want to see it on probably a more consistent basis before I definitely put him in A. So I would say for now he's a solid B, maybe a high B. Just a real solid debut season for him. The best number 9 that we've had since losing out on Prime Jimenez, really, I would say. You know, we've tried and tested various players and it hasn't worked, but Jørgen's come in, done the business, and yeah, really excited to see what the future holds for him at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Pedro Lima, a player that I'm excited to see again. Could have probably put him on the players that I excluded, but I still think that, you know, his name has been bandied around enough and we've seen enough of him that we can probably judge him. Again, I'm going to put this one at C for now. I think he's shown enough that he doesn't have to be a D. But really, we need to see him getting some more first team minutes next season, to be honest. I remember in one of his early interviews, he said he came to Wolves because he wanted to play and get in the World Cup squad for 2026. Unless there's a phenomenal season next year, I just can't see that happening as of right now. But I am hoping he gets more opportunities and more minutes this coming season. From what I've seen of him so far, I think he's been very, very good. I'm surprised that he's not been given more opportunities. But I think with the fee, the potential of the player that we may well get, for me, that's a C. Next up, we move on to Carlos Forbes. And this has been nothing short of a disaster. So I'm going to put him in D for disaster. He came in as a potential replacement for Pedro Neto. Came in on loan. And thank God Wolves put that sort of option to buy in rather than a flat obligation. Just never, I was quite excited of this signing when it happened, but just never ever set the world alight when he came onto the pitch. Struggled under Gary O'Neill to get game time. You think maybe with a Portuguese head coach coming in Vitor Pereira, he may have got an opportunity. But the fact that 2 head coaches don't give him that chance probably says it all. And Carlos Forbes, again, could go on to have a good career elsewhere. I think with his raw pace and you know, ability on the ball, he may well have an opportunity elsewhere. But at Wolves, it was just an absolute disaster of a season for him. And similarly to Sam Johnston, I'm afraid I'm going to have to put a D as well. Came in, I think Wolves probably signed him with the right intentions, but with Jose Sarr still at the club and not moving on, it just turned out to be a bit of a disastrous deal for Wolves, to be honest. Was out of favour completely under Vitor Pereira, and even when there was opportunities such as Manchester United away this year for Sam Johnston to play, he wasn't even in the squad. So no doubt he'll be moved on this summer. But Sam Johnston to Wolves at around £10 million, yeah, it's nothing short of a disaster, and D for Wolves. We now move on to Andre, who again was a bit of a surprise at the time that we signed him. Central midfielder or holding midfielder wasn't necessarily what Wolves needed at the time, but I'm sure every Wolves fan is glad that we managed to get that deal over the line now. Something of a real coup, I think, for Matt Hobbs and his team, who obviously had a real keen eye on South American talent. And again, with Lamina at the time and João Gomez, we sort of struggled to see where Andre fitted in. And I think Gary O'Neill felt the same as well. But in the end, I think we can all see the quality that Andre has. Very similar to Strand Larsen. For now, I'm going to put him in a high B, but could easily go into an A category. I think over the next 12 months, if he sits at the same sort of level of quality and builds on what he produced throughout the 24-25 season, like João Gomez, could be a real sought-after talent within the next 6 to 12 months. So yeah, Andre, fantastic piece of business. For now, I'll put him in B. Emmanuel Agbadou as well. I think, again, same as Andre, could easily be put in A. A lot of people basically labelling Agbadou as one of the main reasons why we stayed up this season, and I have no doubt that is the case. But I will reserve judgment on him for another 6 to 12 months. So, again, I'm going to put him at a high B. Fantastic player. I want to see it again for another 6 to 12 months if we can. And then, I would happily boost him up to an A. A lot of you may think that's harsh, but I just think on that such a small sample size of 6 months, it's hard for me to say, yeah, fantastic is the best thing since sliced spread, when next season we know how quickly things can change in football. But for me, Agbadu, top 6 months so far at Wolves, so yeah, high B. Marshall Monetzi, I do like Marshall Monetzi, and Vitor Pereira is really complimentary of him as well, and a huge reason why Strand Larsen has done so well at the club. Do I think he's had as much of a positive impact as the likes of Agbadu and so on? Possibly not, but I still think he's done enough to warrant his place and to be playing a lot of football at Molineux as well. I'm going to stick him at B, but obviously not as high as the likes of Menezzi and so on. I was tempted to put him in C, but I just think that's a little bit harsh on... You know what, actually, I'm going to put him at C for now, just because I think the fee for Marshall Monetzi just is a little bit inflated. So that may be harsh, and that may cause some debate. I'll put Monetzi as a high C. Again, I probably want to see a lot more from him in terms of end product. Look, I can't take anything away from the thunder strike against Brentford in the league. But yeah, I think for the fee that we paid for him, I'm going to just put him at a high C for now. Sorry, Marshall. And then we're going to finish off with Nasser Giga. And again, just such a small amount of game time for him. I would have expected and probably wanted him to play a little bit more. Vitor Pereira probably was expecting him to play a bit more, but Matt Doherty just kept up his level of consistency and really didn't look out of place for the rest of the season. So for now, Giga, I was going to slot him in D, but I think that's extremely harsh. I think because he's young, fairly favourable fee. Whether he goes out on loan or stays at Wolves and kicks on next year, I think there is sell on to be had there, and there is growth to be had there. So let's slot him in at C as well. And then in hindsight, slotting Nasser Giga in at C, is that harsh on the likes of Menezzi? I think if you just allow me to have like tiers of each grade, so like I said, a high C for Menezzi and probably a low C for the likes of Nasser Giga, I think that's all. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are on my list. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think I've been a little bit too harsh on some of these players? And do you think I've given a boost to some of these players that maybe should be in a lower category? Do let me know. But the era of Matt Hobbs at Wolverhampton Wanderers is over, and of course a new leadership group, including the likes of Matt Jackson, who will take over a lot of Matt Hobbs' roles, and Domenico Tetti, who's been seen at Compton for the first time so far this week. I'm excited to see what happens. I think part of me is dubious, as I mentioned on some content before, but it's a new, fresh start for Wolves, a big summer coming up, and hopefully, a lot of these players that we sign, if I do a grading list similar to this time next year, I could be putting a lot of them in A. But let's wait and see. As always, guys, be sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.